They're coming to get you, Barbara.
This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims.
Hey everyone, Genome here, coming at you with the next episode in my Hack and or Slash series. The series where I take a look back at horror franchises of old and, well, see if they still hold up to 2020's, Genome standards, lofty standards that they may be. So you may be wondering why I'm cosplaying here as a guy named Johnny. Well, like cosplay anyway. I should give you a slight hint, as well as the intro, of what movie I'm going to be doing. So, any Russell Streiner homages notwithstanding, let's talk about the film series I'm going to be reviewing. So I'm going to be reviewing the George Romero's Night of the Living Dead series. First 4 movies. Maybe beyond that, we'll see if I get froggy after that. But in any case, it would be remiss of me to start anywhere but at the beginning. So let's take a trip back to 1968 and review this legendary movie, right? Many consider this the godfather of zombie franchise or zombie film genre, and it's hard to argue that. There were some earlier iterations, but this one's probably the most fleshed out, and definitely the one that I think inspires, the most imitators throughout. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So let me give you a real brief plot synopsis here. I'm not going to spoil the ending or anything for you, for those of you who have not seen it somehow, and then we'll get on to the pros and cons of the movie. So 1968's A Night of the Living Dead was basically shot almost all entirely in one location in an old abandoned house that they refitted and redressed for the movie, and it was shot on a shoestring budget of about $110,000. Pretty low even at the time. So I'll go ahead and get this out of the way now. What George and company did with the budget that they had, they did to great effect, and it's definitely a testimony to a labor of love project as opposed to, just a corporate cash in, right? So anyway, on with the show. So we are opened up with a pretty exceedingly long driving scene that chews up like 2 minutes of film time and screen time, whatever, before we get into the intro. All right, well, whatever, got past that time somehow, right? But so yeah, we're driving up, and we went into our first 2 characters of Johnny, once again, played by Russell Streiner, and everyone's favorite catatonic scream queen, Barbara, played by Judith O'Dea. So they're going to go there and, pay respects to their departed father, right? And right off the bat, we are thrown right into it. There's like a couple minutes of dialogue here, playful banter back and forth, sort of, and it kind of establishes a fairly good actual brother-sister dynamic here. And then we're treated to the very first zombie of the movie. He doesn't waste any time. Within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever, after they get to the graveyard, we got our first reanimated cadaver. Yeah, we are introduced to something maybe a little different than what we're expecting. These zombies seem a little bit faster than we're used to. George slowed them down in later iterations, and I technically think they're probably a little more effective in this one. But anyway, Johnny is forced to defend his sister, who he'd been teasing, in the most famous soundbite, of course, you saw it there at the intro, basically the movie, one of the most famous of the horror genre.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
And he bites the dust, and Judith runs away, or should I say Barbara runs away. And after some horror movie tropes of tripping, she does smartly kick off her shoes, though. And she makes her way to an abandoned house. Well, this abandoned house is obviously the fulcrum of the entire county, because lots of people wind up being there. Unbeknownst to her, there's already some people there, but more on that later. So she goes in, locks the door, and begins her long slide into the catatonic state that she stays in the rest of the movie, basically. albeit some very brief flashes of emotion interspersed between.
What's happening?
Oh, you think it's happening?
What's happening?
So we are introduced fairly quickly after that to, I'd say, the main character of this movie, name of Ben, played by Dwayne Jones. And he comes in and kind of takes charge of things. And it's probably a good thing he did, because she's just sitting there freaking out. So he begins to barricade up the house. He begins to take off boards, nail them to the door, try to, to buttress things up and solidify the defenses. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, this room looks pretty secure. If we have to, we can run in here and board up the doors. Won't be long for those things be back pounding their way in here. They're afraid now.
But she's being zero help. She's just walks around in a stupor. Basically, like I said, it's the rest of the movie. She walked around to a stupor, except for one breakout scene. Or breakdown scene, should I say. So for a long time, it looks like it's just those two there. And eventually, we are introduced to a couple more people. Name of Harry Cooper is one of them. Well, actually, the Cooper couple. The Mr. played by Carl Hardman, and the Mrs. played by Marilyn Eastman. They also have a small child there, and there's also another young couple. I guess it's supposed to be teenagers or young 20-somethings, whatever. Name of Judy, the girlfriend. That's played by Judith Ridley, and Tom, played by Keith Wayne. He of the bulging muscles and very tight-fitting shirt. So that pretty much rounds out our merry band of characters. There is a corpse and cadaver upstairs, which for some strange reason doesn't reanimate. Never really explained why. Upstairs, but other than that, that's what's in the house. So they've been hiding out in the cellar, this last group of people, and Mr. Cooper thinks that's the best place for everyone to hide in the basement. And Ben and he have some pretty heated back and forth arguments, and Ben kind of lays out why it's a death trap down there. And Mr. Cooper doesn't believe him, believes it's the easiest place to defend.
Now I suggest we all go back downstairs before any of those things find out we're in here.
They can't get in here.
You got the whole place boarded up?
Yeah, most of it. All but a few spots upstairs. They won't be hard to fix.
You're insane. The cellar's the safest place.
I'm telling you, they can't get in here.
And I'm telling you, those things turned over our car. We were damn lucky to get away at all. Now you tell me those things can't get through this lousy pile of wood?
The end of the movie might actually justify what Mr. Cooper's saying, but okay,
Look, the cellar. The cellar, there's only one door, right? Just one door, that's all we have to protect. Tom and I fixed it so it locks and boards from the inside. But up here, all these windows, why, we never know where they were going to hit us next.
You got a point, Mr. Cooper. But down in the cellar, there's no place to run to. I mean, if they did get in, there'd be no back exit. We'd be done for.
Ben makes salient points. But anyway, they have a small group of people together now, and they continue to reinforce the house a bit, make plans, listen to radio broadcasts. That's when all the radio comes into play now.
Consistent reports from witnesses to the effect that people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance were killing and eating their victims prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
TV, that sort of thing, to get more reports on what's going on in the outside world. And from then, they launch a plan to get to the nearest help center that's been set up in the town neighboring. And to do so, they have to take the truck that Ben had driven up there but was out of gas. And so they make a plan. There happens to be a gas pump on this property. I guess it's a little farmstead, right? So they're going to get into the truck, two of them are, fuel it up, get back to the house, and get rolling in the truck and then head over there. Unfortunately for them, there's about 20 of the zombies out there now. It was just one that chased her out there, but I don't know if they're telepathically linked or they have an excellent sense of smell or something, but they're all being drawn to the house, so it's getting more and more, so they make a break for it to go do it. Catastrophe happens after Judy, for some inexplicable reason, says, "I have to go with you."
I'm going with him.
Get back in the cellar.
I'm going.
It's too late. It's too late.
Unless you're coming, come on.
And she jumps out there and basically gets everyone killed because of it. But yeah, so they go out and it's a total cluster. The truck thing falls through. There's explosions. Tom and Judy bite the big one together. I guess it's very romantic. They're a very, romantic couple, I guess. Star-crossed lovers that they are. And so Ben has to fight his way back to the house. He's not happy with what Mr. Cooper's been doing. Harry didn't want to let him back in. He's very scared. Harry's very scared, and it makes him very confrontational and combative. So he and Ben are oil and water real bad here. So once he gets in and actually reinforces the door, gets someone safe, he just beats the heck out of Harry. And so things further degrade and fall apart. Keep in mind, this all takes place over one evening, right? So as the hours dwindle on, more and more things happen. The little girl that's in the basement is sick and moaning, and they get some reports over the radio or TV saying that anyone who dies returns to life is one of these things.
In the cold room at the university, we had a cadaver from which all 4 limbs had been amputated. Sometime early this morning, it opened its eyes and began to move its trunk. It was dead, but it opened its eyes and tried to move.
So people start to worry about the little girl now. It's like, what's making her sick? We do find out that she was bitten. This doesn't really mean anything. There's a slight piece of dialogue in here that Ben gives as well. We don't know what kind of diseases these things carry, right? And but other than that, we're not used to the zombie trope yet of getting bitten and turned. Well, we find that out. That's how it happens in this movie, right? Or at least one of the ways it happens. But basically what they say is anyone who dies comes back to life. So they start worrying about the little girl, and it's impeding their ability to escape. Well, before it gets to be too much more of a problem, the zombies kind of make a break for it and decide to bum rush the house and start tearing down all these fortifications, and it's working for them. They actually use tools in this movie in a few different spots, usually picking up rocks, but basic stuff. They are afraid of fire in this, which is something we never really see again. But yeah, so they use tools and they're breaking down things, and we are actually treated to another vision of Johnny, who is coming to get Barbara again. And yeah, so it's basically a final confrontation at the end with zombies versus house and survivors within. I will probably not say anything else about this because I don't want to spoil the ending for you. And there's a lot going on in the ending. It takes a while to get through it all. And it was honestly a bit of a shock to see how they wrapped everything up. It's not probably what you're expecting. So just give you that right there. So that's Night of the Living Dead. Basically, a group of survivors holds up in a little farmhouse, and they try to survive the night. And this is at the initial parts of the zombie outbreak. There's some mention made that maybe it's caused by radiation from Venus, from a returning satellite. Very, very 50s. I like it. But so we're not really given any more information now, other than people who have recently died are now returning to life and seeking human victims. I guess it is hard for us to believe what we're reporting to you here, but it does seem to be a fact.
The wave of murder which is sweeping the eastern third of the nation is being committed by creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims.
So, bad line recitation notwithstanding, there is the movie. So it's about 90 minutes, or maybe, maybe 100 minutes, something like that. Not too terribly long. And shot in black and white, which I think was a good idea on the production crew's part, because it does help hide the budget a bit. I know they had to use an old dilapidated house, and of course zombie makeup was nowhere near what it would become 2 decades later, basically. So yeah, it was a probably good suggestion, and that way they could use Bosco chocolate syrup as blood. It works though. So I like the whole black and white aspect of it, and it doesn't need color to be effective. So good decision there. So anyway, let's get on to it. Pros and cons, and then we'll get into an overall rating at the end here. So let me do some cons first, okay? That's how I usually start things off. Okay, the dialogue.
You got a point, Mr. Cooper. But down in the cellar, there's no place to run to. I mean, if they did get in, There'd be no back exit. We'd be done for.
Allow me to wax poetic. These actors are reciting dialogue.
We have to go downstairs now, Barbara.
She's right. You have to go downstairs now, just for a little while, until we get back. Then we can all leave.
Oh, I'd like to leave. Yes.
That's about the delivery you're going to get for most of the characters in this movie. About only 2 characters seem really comfortable in front of the camera here and don't just sound like they're regurgitating lines. And that's Dwayne Jones, who plays Ben.
This place is boarded up pretty solid now. We ought to be all right here for a while. We have the gun and bullets, food and the radio. Sooner or later, someone's bound to come and get us out.
And Marilyn Eastman has some pretty good moments there, actually.
Don't be afraid of me. I'm Helen Cooper, Harry's wife.
Mostly when it's not speaking, she's very good at kind of conveying an emotion and like consternation, and she's like, you can tell she's like pissed off at her husband, doesn't like him, and is sick of him always arguing about things, right? So she plays that very well. So those 2 are about the only 2 that are exceptional in this role. I mean, there's a lot of other minor characters and all that, like on the TV and radio, but I'm not really going to get into that too much.
Chief, if I were surrounded by 6 or 8 of these things, would I stand a chance with them?
Well, there's no problem. If you had a gun, shoot him in the head. That's a sure way to kill him. If you don't, get yourself a club or a torch. Beat him or burn him. They go up pretty easy.
Yeah, acting is fairly weak through this. Oh man, Tom and Judy. Oh, Tom especially. They made him like Opie, who's like 2 feet taller and about 150 pounds heavier, right? He's he's Opie. Or Leave It to Beaver, you know, he is the Beaver. It's like, gee whiz, Mr. Cooper, can we get out of that cellar now? Oh, I'm not even exaggerating. If you haven't seen it in this watch, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's pretty rough stuff. I don't know why they had to make him like that. I guess he's supposed to be like, you know, the 50s trope or whatever it is. Oh, goody, and ugh. There's just no gravity to him, right, as other people are. He has a kind of wide-eyed surprise look the entire movie. You know, he does wind up being useful. You know, he does get everyone killed, sort of, because of his girlfriend. But that's more of her fault than his, but whatever. So, yeah, man, the acting is a little woof. I mean, I'm not sure what direction George gave to Judith, you know, playing Barbara. I mean, can you do this? For an hour and a half, if so, you can be in this movie, and you can be Barbara. Not much is asked of her. She has a few freak out scenes, and she's decent at that.
He grabbed me, and he ripped at me. He held me, and he ripped at my clothes.
I think you should just calm down.
Oh, I screamed, Johnny! Johnny, help me! Oh, help me! And he wouldn't let me go. He ripped. And then Johnny came and he ran and he fought this man.
But man, it's just hard for her to watch her sitting around fiddling with the couch and staring off, you know, into empty space like she's that broken, you know what I mean? It just seems a bit tropey and just doesn't let her stretch her wings too much. But yeah, Dwayne Jones is really good in this, even though he is maybe not the hero that some people would make him out to be. He does some pretty sketchy things in this movie, actually, you know.
My brother is not dead!
Someone could even argue that maybe he was the despot, and he might have actually gotten more people killed because of the way he did things, and, you know, he winds up taking a life himself, you know. I don't want to give it all away once again, but... but yeah, he seems good in front of the camera, and not too much else. No, too many people do. So, the other huge thing I have a problem with this movie is the music. All right, the music isn't awful. It is schlocky and over the top, and, you know, like I said, it's very 40s and 50s serial kind of level. But it's just so loud. It drowns everything out when it's on screen. I don't like it. I would have liked this movie much better, say maybe like a Kubrick production, like a 2001 or something, almost silent. It would have worked so much better for this movie, so you can just hear the dialogue and the grunts and groans. But my gosh, it's loud. Music is a big no for me. Don't like it. Not real big fan of, especially the volume of it. So music, definitely you've lowered it down a tone, right? Pacing is pretty good. I'm not going to really complain about that too much. And there's not really too many other things. You know, this is a low-budget affair. I am not going to knock the effects. I think the zombies look decent, to be honest with you. I mean, they're like freshly raised cadavers, so, you know, I'm not expecting them to be falling to pieces and rotting and all that. We don't see any, like, long dead cadavers. So it works. It just works for me. It's a relatively tame affair by today's standards, but it's still a little, you know, queasy to watch them eat flesh. It's kind of gross. It works well in black and white. But yeah, so the effects I think are fine. They do right for the, you know, what's asked of them in the movie. There's a funny scene in there where you can actually see the camera pan up, but it's like not like a slow pan. It's like someone just like realized that they weren't making a mark or whatever, and they go, "Whoops!"
Standing there, staring at me. I started to
get Ben back in frame. It's kind of funny, very charming. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the most cons you'll get. I mean, there's two pretty good ones there, but everything else there, I think, is pretty acceptable. You know what I mean? And let's get into some pros. Let's talk about some good things about this movie. All right, basically inventing a genre, at least a genre that, you know, the mass public can get into. You know, the characters are pretty cool. I mean, I like the fact that it's not a homogenous society right away in the house. You know, it's constant conflict. You know, they're never really getting along and getting things together to fight this. And this is actually a running theme throughout all of the Romero zombie flicks. You know, there's always human conflict. Usually the human conflict is more pressing and dangerous than the zombie one, right? So it starts right here, and I can dig it. You know, you expect a movie of the time to be a little more, everyone be hunky-dory with each other and helping each other, and it's not like that at all. This is like one big competing faction in the house. There's nobody agreeing on anything, and it adds an element of tension. So I like that aspect of it. Really good. The house setting is perfect. It feels very claustrophobic. Even the house is pretty large. It just, you know, the enemies everywhere. And another really strong facet of this is the use of the radio and television to, while we can't see all of these zombies, we know that it's happening everywhere. This further isolates people in the house and basically humanity in general, or the U.S. in general. We don't want to say about other countries at this point.
The wave of murder which is sweeping the eastern third of the nation is being committed by creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims.
But it's an excellent, excellent way of filling in the gaps of what we can't see and making them feel more and more isolated and at risk. So really dig that little tie in there. Looks fairly good. I mean, there is some grainy stuff there as to be expected, but there's a lot of interesting use of shadows and lighting in there. Like they'll cover half a face. Or they'll cover up. There's a really creative shot where one of the zombies, like, I guess their hunger is so great they eat insects too. So she grabs like a centipede and eats it. But it leans in. She leans in just so to get in completely shadow, so you don't actually see it. You don't have to worry about censoring anything or grossing people out too much. Very clever. A lot of very clever shots in this movie. The premise itself is so cool, man. What an idea. You know, take zombies, throw them at people, a small group of survivors in a house who make, for the most part, fairly logical decisions. So that works so well. Excellent, excellent job there. I like the zombies in this movie. I like them better than I do in later iterations, to be honest with you. They seem more threatening in this for the sheer reasons they can move a little bit. And then being able to use rudimentary tools and stuff just adds another layer of danger to them. I dig it. Why not? You know, they don't have to be the complete lumbering fools that become later on, because they're not scary. And the ones that follow this, when they're slow moving zombies, they're just not scary. You cannot make those things scary, and they're bumbling around and shuffling so slowly that, you know, your grandmother in a walker can get away from them. So I dig that. I like the zombies in this flick a lot. So I don't know what else to say. It's a lot of good here, as opposed to the cons that could easily have fallen into this movie. And this is not like, you know, world's greatest cinema by any means. It's still kind of a schlocky movie, but there's a lot of good things here, and it helps cement it into the legend status in the genre.
Are they slow-moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
So let's go ahead and get into an overall star ranking of this movie, and then we'll get into just a few more ins and outs of it. So, what do I think of this movie? I like this movie. I don't love it. There's definitely room for improvement, and that had nothing to do with the budget. I think most of that stems really, and a lot of it's probably done afterwards, but like the annoyingly loud music, that's not very good, I think. In the movie is just, it really grates on me, man. And the acting, some of the acting is so poor and wooden, and the dialogue, the acting wouldn't even be so bad if some of the dialogue was written better, but it just wasn't. Like I said, the only one that even sounded like a human being was Dwayne for the most part. And, you know, I mean, it's good to have your hero, Ben, be the most, you know, erudite of them all, but still, it's just, that kind of holds things back. The other people don't convey the tension that they should. Now, Carl Hardman does pretty good as the whiny, simpering, and definitely cracking under pressure Harry Cooper, but he definitely seems like he's reading dialogue too. It's just not natural coming out of him, and it comes off kind of cartoonish at times. So yeah, the acting just really brings it down some, but most everything else is really solid. So if I were to hazard to give this a star ranking, which I'm going to right now, go figure, prepare for it, I'm going to give this movie 3 out of 5. Yes, I know this is a legendary movie, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this in the comments and on the, you know, the horror boards and all that, but this is not a perfect movie. I don't cut slack just because a movie is considered legendary, you know what I mean? Or if it's done by a legendary director, and just because the budget's low doesn't mean it gets a complete break. I give that some credence. I give all those things some credence, but they're not going to affect my overall score and how much I enjoy that movie, because I don't want to do people to a movie that I didn't enjoy. Now, all that being said, I did enjoy this movie. 3 out of 5 is a pretty decent score. A lot higher than, like, say, some of the Friday the 13th movies that I ranked. A lot of those were 2s, you know. Enjoyable, but not great. This movie is, of course, deeper than that. It probes deeper into what happens when people are under extreme duress for long periods of time. But this is not the kind of movie I'm going to watch all the time. We're going to see some more of the Dead movies in the later iterations here, and some of those I probably rather watch than this one. It's not because of the age of the movie, really, at all, because that doesn't bother me. I don't mind that it's in black and white. I don't mind the budget. I don't mind the special effects. That doesn't bother me at all. It's just some other things in this movie I just don't think were completely up to snuff. But it was a good movie. I'd say it's a worthy holder of the title of a legendary movie, just for the fact of what it brought to the table and what it brought to future cinema, especially in the zombie genre. So all that being said, it's a good watch. I'd recommend watching it. It's, I don't know, it's just well regarded, and it's hard to deny its place in the annals of cinema history. So there it is, 3 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommended to watch. I just don't think it's something that I would want to watch, you know, every month, maybe once a year thing, or once every other year thing, something like that. But still recommended to watch, and hopefully the rest of the movies in this series, which I have all seen, but hopefully they will maintain the same standards as we go on. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more review content in the Hack and or Slash series. I'm going to have Dawn of the Dead coming up for too much longer. It's sitting over there, out of reach. Can't show it to you, but it's there to be reviewed. So stay tuned for that next week or so. I'll probably get that done. Maybe I won't have to cosplay quite as much. And then there's tons more review content coming up, including music reviews, video game reviews, comic book reviews, because as everyone knows who watch my channel, if I can review it, I will do it. So, until next time, this is Genome, who's coming to get you, Barbara.